Hey guys, so today is going to be probably a little strange for some of you. I don't know if you know, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I know it's the middle of the month, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go with this and, how far I wanted to go with this. So real quick, I'm going to give a trigger warning that we are going to be talking about mental health issues, domestic violence, suicide, things like that. So fair warning. I won't be upset if you guys skip ahead to the next thing. So yeah, anyway, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know right now I'm gonna be doing a set, mental health awareness inspired tribute set, whatever you want to call it, I guess. So I don't know about you guys. This is something pretty near and dear to me. I'm going to tell you some personal things about myself, but I also want to let everyone know before we get very far into the video that in the description box, I will be linking some resources for anybody who may be struggling or, having a hard time right now, because I know with the pandemic and whatnot, it's getting to us, all of us. But I will also be linking my Instagram profile and my email, and I will make that clear why later. So I think for those of us that struggled with this anyway, the pandemic has really brought to roost some things that we were maybe coping with on a regular basis, that maybe we had found some coping mechanisms and, different ways to deal with. And I think that the pandemic has kind of pushed it all back in our faces. I need a mic later. Sorry. Yeah, I think the pandemic has kind of forced us to look at our demons a little harder, or maybe, I don't know about you guys, but if you struggle with mental health issues, sitting alone with your thoughts is kind of rough sometimes. So for me, anyway. So I'm not going to be talking through all of this. Sometimes we're going to speed through because I'm going to be doing a lot of filing and whatnot. So, okay. By the way, what I have here today, I'm using some butterflies, green. The symbol for mental health awareness is the green ribbon. I'm going to be using foil to make a green ribbon type deal, which I will show you guys later. So I have some water up here. It's going to be a white set. I'm also using my black mamba. I'm almost out, so I had to put it in a smaller jar. So I will be using my black mamba, my super white from Valentino, and that's about it. Simple set today. Okay, so you guys don't know a lot about me in the way. Some of you do. Some of you know I grew up in foster care. Not my entire childhood, but a large portion of it. Before I was adopted by my grandmother. And then I went to live with a foster mother when I was older so that I could go back to school and get my act together because I was struggling really bad at that time. Adolescence, I had dropped out and I was acting out. I was doing drugs. I was, a mess. So my former mentor through the Big Brother, Big Sister program here in the United States, she kind of came and said, hey, you need to go back to school. You need to graduate at least. Why don't you come? I lived in Ohio, in Columbus at the time. She said, why don't you come live with me in Cleveland just while you go back and get your diploma? You can work, you can, focus on your schooling. And I was like, okay. I was very unhappy, so a change of scenery sounded like a great idea. But also, my education was really important to me, and I hated that I dropped out, and that was part of my struggle. I had dropped out to help my grandmother pay the bills, got a job, She struggled really hard. She took 8 of us in on top of her 5 kids, and she struggled, and I wanted to help. She fought me on it, my grandmother, so, but I just refused to go to school, so she fought me on it pretty hard. she wanted me to, make something of myself. My parents were both addicts. They struggled with addiction issues. Well, my dad struggled with addiction issues. My mom is a narcissist and a monster. She's a demon, straight from the pits of hell. And I say that with the utmost affection. I have not spoken to my mother in years. And I won't go into that whole mess, but I was the only girl out of 8 kids, and she did not care for me. She did not like me at all. So there are some issues there, girl and her mom, whatever. Anyway, so because of her addiction issues, and my dad was in and out of jail, because that's what he knew. So because of her addiction issues, we were in and out of foster care, and the system kept putting us back. They'd remove us for a couple days, they'd send us right back. It was ridiculous. The CPS and child care system in America is a joke, a horrific joke. Anyway, so she was pretty abusive. I won't go into details, obviously, because that's, a long time ago. I've dealt with it, but so there was a lot of unresolved, I don't want to call it trauma because that makes me feel like a victim, but that's what it is. So I was, 5 and 6 years old, so whatever. Anyway, so as a teen, I struggled a lot. Mental health wise, because I got a lot of my self-esteem from school, and when I quit, I was always really smart. I did really well in school. Like, I was the dirty kid. I was always starving. Like, so before, that was something nobody could take away from me, was that I was super smart. Nobody was going to take that from me. Well, so as a teenager, I attempted suicide a number of times. Like, I don't even want to think about how often. 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't know. And I know I spent some time in a mental health facility. They called it a group home for a while because I needed to. My grandma saw me spiraling again, and she decided not this time, and she called the white coats to come and get me. And I'm going to make a lot of bad jokes because that's how I deal with it. So I apologize in advance if I offend anybody. That's just my process. Anyway, so when I got older, I joined the military after I went back to school and whatnot. My foster mom in Cleveland, I credit her with keeping me alive. She taught me a little bit about self-worth and about just, being someone I could be proud of, because I had some obvious identity issues from growing up the way I did, and, my family and my mom. So I had some issues with self-worth, because when your mom doesn't care, who else will, right? Let me just say that all of this is in the past for me, so I don't need any sympathy or anything. This is just me sharing my story, and maybe if somebody needs help, they'll feel comfortable enough now to reach out to me if they need it. So when I got older, I joined the military. They did not approve of that group home stay that I had, and they sent me home on medical leave after a while, after they found it, because I lied about it, which was not smart. Anyway, so I moved back home. I didn't have kids yet, so I was partying a lot. Got into drugs, obviously. Like, what else do you do? Now, keep in mind my mom was a junkie, so a drug addict was something I was never gonna be, right? Then later on, I had kids. I experimented with drugs, like, a lot. And I didn't realize at the time that I was using it to cope. I was just having a good time, I was young. And then right before my 21st birthday, I got pregnant with Alex, and I calmed down quite a bit. I settled down because I wasn't going to be my mom, you know. I was going to take care of my child. I was terrified to have kids because I had raised, you know, my 7 brothers, so whatever. So I was going to be a good mom, damn it. I was determined. Anyway, I struggled really bad with postpartum depression. Like, they don't warn you that if you've had issues with depression in the past, that postpartum is going to kick you in the teeth and then stomp on your gums. I wasn't prepared for what was going to happen. Thankfully, I was able to get some help and pull out of it. But when you're in that pit, you know, in that dark hole, and you don't have like family or someone looking out for you, and you start to get scared, and hunting down resources is the very last thing on your mind, and it seems like an insurmountable task to get help because you've given up. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to fight it anymore. You don't want to fight it. You don't want to. I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. It seems easier to give into it and to just stay in bed all day, to just sleep, because sleep is the only time you have any peace. It's the only time you're not seeing awful things in your head and you're not thinking awful thoughts about yourself. And, you know, anyway. So here in our country, the mental health system is just, it's not good. Finding resources is almost impossible if you have insurance. If you don't, it's almost a joke. It's a joke. It really is. Like, insurance isn't required to cover things like that. We need a complete overhaul of the system here. Like, even our vets, and, you know, America's all about the troops. Even our vets can't get help when they need it, you know? When they come back from war and they're not okay, when they have PTSD. I didn't realize until much later, when I got myself together and got therapy, that you could have PTSD from your childhood. Didn't know that. Anyway, so then I later became pregnant with Loki. And again, at this point, I was bartending and I was drinking like a lot, but only at work because I had boundaries, damn it. I was drinking every day, and I told myself it was for work because we got paid if customers bought us drinks. So the more I drank, the more money I made. But, you know, they didn't have to be real alcohol. I had a hard time. I'm an introvert. I had a hard time being outgoing, but I liked the money that my job afforded me. So it started out, I drank to be more outgoing, to be more friendly. It made me more comfortable. And that's how I coped. Well, then I started to get sick, and it became partially it became how I coped with pain as well, because my job was physical and you know. Anyway. So I got pregnant for Loki and I stopped drinking immediately, altogether. Then I had Loki and the depression kicked in again. I started drinking again, heavily. Then Loki got sick, and that was my wake-up call. I stopped drinking. Never again. I was done. Since then, I've had a drink here and there. Like, out socially, I'll have maybe one. I don't enjoy it. But I feel like I've gotten to a good place where I don't want to drink. I just don't want to anymore. It was hard, though. It was very hard, especially because my child was sick. I was going through some pretty intense stuff, and of course I wanted to drink. But I promised her I wouldn't, because I felt like part of it, I felt like I had missed something because of my drinking, that maybe I could have spotted it sooner, you know, or maybe she wouldn't have been so sick if I were not drinking. I know that that is not the case now, but that guilt doesn't go away. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. As a mother, when your child is sick like that or hurt, you're always going to blame yourself. There's more you could have done. You know what I mean? Anyway, so then I got much sicker, much sicker. I was having surgeries every 6 months with the lupus. I was in pain constantly. I walked around on a broken hip for almost, Lord, a year at least, possibly more, where it was completely dislocated out of the socket and no one would listen to me. However, they would prescribe me painkillers. Yeah, so, and I was justified in taking them, but after a while, I got tired of it being my everyday, of always worrying if I was gonna be, if I was gonna have enough for the next day, if I was gonna be able to get up and function, if I was gonna have enough pain medication to do what I needed to do that day. I got tired of it. So I went and got help, because as much as you want to quit when you've been on medication like that for 10, however many years it was at that point, it was years of every day, your body is not going to let you just stop. So I went and got help. Luckily, I was in a position at that point in my life that I had insurance and I could afford it to just go and get help one day. Not everybody is, and I realize my privilege in that. It's only a recent thing, so I was very grateful to finally have insurance, because most of my life I have it. And I can't imagine how much harder that would have been. I would have had a very easy excuse. Well, I can't get help. I don't have insurance. I can't afford it. I can't get help. I can't quit. You know what I mean? So now, since I've quit, because throughout most of my adult life at one point or another, or actually almost all of my adult life, I've had some form of crutch to help me through dealing with the things in my head, That's why postpartum beat me up so badly, because I didn't have any of my crutches then. And then all of a sudden I was having to deal with the things in my brain all on my own. And I hadn't done that since I was 16, And I didn't deal with it so well back then. Hence the group home. Now, because I struggle with self-worth issues, obviously, I'm getting better about it, much better. I have talents, I have skills. I think I'm a good person, so I'm getting better at realizing, my good qualities and that I do have worth, as do all of you. And it's really hard to see that sometimes when you're in that hole. It's really hard to see that maybe everything wouldn't be better off if you were gone. People would notice, that people would care. Doesn't seem like it when you're in it, but so I've been doing, since then I had done a lot of therapy to right some wrongs, some things that I had let happen, like, to make sure that the cycle didn't repeat itself with my kids. Because that is one of my greatest fears, is that my mistakes will cause my children to end up in that boat and feeling the way that I felt when I was a kid, and I don't ever want that to happen. So I've spent the last few years dealing with my mess to make sure that I don't turn into my mother, because that's why I didn't want children. I was afraid that, the addiction, the narcissism would kick in when I had kids, because I don't know what my mom was like before us. I know what she was like after, and I was terrified that I would become that and do that to my kids, which is why I didn't want kids. I'm glad that, I'm glad mistakes were made. I love my kids to death. They're why I'm alive. But that's why at the time I was terrified to have children. So, and I've spent the last couple years making sure that the cycle doesn't repeat itself. Trying to. I mean, obviously I can't control everything, and I'm still learning and, becoming who I'm supposed to be finally at this age. Figuring out who I am and what I like. But because of those self-worth issues, I got into some messy relationships, some domestic violence situations, some that weren't even violent, were just toxic, and I didn't realize it because, hey, they didn't abuse me, so can I really complain? Yes, you can. Better doesn't mean good enough. Does that make sense? Just because it's not the worst doesn't mean it's the best. There are shades of gray, and you don't have to settle for gray. Now, because of this pandemic, because of lockdown, there have been a much higher number of domestic violence issues, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when women are, and men, let me not be a jerk about it, it's just a habit, I'm trying to fix it, and men, when you're locked up with your abuser like that and you don't get a break, it escalates, and it escalates quickly, very quickly. And during the pandemic, a lot of women's shelters were closed or at max capacity because, reasons. Because of the results of the pandemic. And a lot of women, they said that the domestic violence incidents went up 300% during the pandemic, which is awful. But let me also say, I tried to get help. I tried to run when I was being severely abused, and couldn't get help. It was almost impossible, and it's a shame. It's a shame the way we treat women in this country and men who are being abused and need help. It's disgusting that they should have to ask twice, or that I understand that some people, make false reports, but that can't be the reason that people who are being abused don't get the help that they need. That innocent people are dying because of a couple of false reports. That's not right. That can't be the reason. And it's not okay. Why take the risk, of an innocent person dying because someone else did something wrong? That's ridiculous. I need my needle bit. I know I'm kind of rambling at the moment. This is a hard topic for me, but I wanted to get personal for a reason. As difficult as it is. I'm a genius, and I sat these bits down on my table and couldn't pick them back up with my nails. I gotta go through a couple before I find the right one. Okay, so almost finished. Figure you guys didn't want to sit and listen to me file for 20 minutes. I told you I'm an aggressive, excessive filer. Figure nobody else needed to be subjected to that, so try to make it as quick and painless as possible. Anywho, I got a little black spot. That's okay. So, back to where we were. I am going to do something really quick. Where's my ring? While we finish up our discussion. So the reason I tell you these things is not... I have a couple reasons. One, to make anybody who might be struggling and might need help feel a little more comfortable in that maybe I know what you're going through, you know, and if you need help to feel comfortable reaching out. As far as the domestic violence thing, because we are going to be facing so much trauma from this, and as a country, we need to get our act together to help people with mental health conditions, because domestic violence absolutely causes mental health conditions. The rest, I guess my main question is always going to be, what if? What if someone had recognized my mother? You know what I mean? What if someone had understood what we were going through and gotten us help as kids? Because all of my brothers struggle with substance abuse and mental health issues. From, you know, the abuse, the neglect, the just all of it, you know, obviously that was bound to happen. We all struggle, you know, all of us, all 8 of us. What if someone had gotten us help early and gotten us out of there, you know? What could we have been? What if someone had, you know, what if I had known as a teen how to get help for myself? Because my grandma, bless her heart, she tried, but she was from a different time where you didn't talk about that stuff. She got me help when it got really bad, and I will forever be in her debt for that. But what if, you know, education had been better and she had, you know, there hadn't been such a stigma? What if she had been able to get me, you know, the proper kind of help? Maybe my kids wouldn't have suffered because of my mental health issues, you know? What if I had known how to fight for myself and keep fighting and not give up, and not be ashamed of it? You know, what the possibilities in that case are endless. But my other big what if is, what if we stop it? What if we know enough now? If we know enough now and we understand the causes and the effects, and, you know, what if we can change it? What if our kids don't have to deal with it? I mean, what if our kids don't have to struggle the way we do? The way we did, some of us did. What if the next generation is better? There's not a stigma attached to it. I don't know why I tried to hand paint, but here we are. Those are my what ifs. My other what ifs. What if there was a reason that I dealt with what I dealt with? What if that reason is just empathy? What if I'm here and I went through what I went through because someday I would recognize it in somebody else and be able to help? That's kind of what keeps me going sometimes when it gets too dark, is what if maybe there was a reason? And I'm not gonna, get into your God or your preferences or whatever. That's neither here nor there and none of my business. But you gotta admit, the universe is weird. So what if that's why that happened? What if I'm the type of person that would recognize it? Maybe I could help. So that's what keeps me trying when I see people struggling, because maybe I'm their last stop, before they give up. I know I had a last stop before I gave up, where I reached out. I know where I went that day when I knew that was it, that I couldn't take anymore. I went somewhere to someone who I knew would see it. Maybe not consciously at the time, But now looking back, I know that that's why I did what I did that day. That it was just, wanting help and knowing that was the place I was going to get it. You know what I mean? And of course, I fought it kicking and screaming the whole way. Of course I did. Because there wasn't anything wrong with me. And it couldn't be fixed, Couldn't be fixed, just let me go. That was where I was at in my headspace. And obviously that was wrong, There's a lot of what ifs. A lot of what ifs that I am going to deal with probably my whole life. Get off. Get off. So why did I do this today? Lord, I don't know. Now, thinking about it, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you telling people all your personal business? Because sometimes you need a stranger. You need someone impartial to talk to. Someone who's not going to judge you, who doesn't know all your business, that doesn't already have biases. And I think we all need to be that someone for someone else. Is there may be someone in your life that doesn't know who to go to, where to go. You know what I mean? They don't know who they can trust. Make it known that you're that person. And maybe you're not strong enough for that. Lord knows I wasn't for a long time. I was not strong enough to help anyone else. I like to think I am now. But the other reason I did this today is maybe so someone will hear it and know that if you're struggling, you're not by yourself. Some of us, it seem like, we're perfectly happy and have it all together. We're struggling just as bad. That you don't need to be perfect. You don't have to be 100%, That what's good enough for you is good enough. And, some of us are never going to be 100%. Some of us are never going to be all the way healed. You know what I mean? We're not going to be well-adjusted and balanced, you know, like for some of us, that's just not going to happen. And that's okay. You know, that's perfectly okay. What's not okay is living a life where you're in pain all the time. No one should have to live like that. So what if we change it? What if we reach out when we need help? What if we make changes in our society to make it okay to reach out when we need help? What if we make it okay for strangers to walk up to us, you know, when they need help and not feel like they're weak or, you know, a joke or sick? Everybody struggles at some point. I don't care what anybody says. I think everyone has struggled at some point. With whatever, you know. Clearly I have. What if we don't have to? That's my what if. That's my hope. So my daughter struggles with anxiety. I've told you guys before, she is in the gifted program and she has a pretty high IQ. I don't say that to brag, I say that because with that comes a certain level of anxiety. It's pretty common. She struggles a lot, even as young as she is. So I just want for my kids when they're older to not have to feel ashamed to ask for help. You know what I mean? To not feel like a burden if they're sick or if they aren't 100%. That's what I want. And there are only a few ways to do that. Awareness, reform, to make it easier to access mental health care, to make it less of a stigma to have, you know, mental health issues or anxiety issues or depression or whatever it is, whether PTSD, trauma, OCD, whatever it is that you struggle with. My hope is that my kids won't have to feel that stigma and, you know, have to decide between their pride or their life someday the way I did. I hope. I mean, clearly I hope that for everybody, but we're not there yet. And it'll probably be a long time. It's getting better. It's definitely better than when I was younger, that's for sure. 100, like, oh, so much better. Why do I still see? So, in conclusion, I know it got pretty serious and I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. You never know who could have needed to hear that. Just somebody's there, somebody's listening, and somebody will listen if you need it, you know? In conclusion, I am going to include some resources in the description box if you need help immediately, whether it be domestic violence, whether it be depression, whether it be suicidal, whatever. I'm going to include all those resources, what I can find. I'm going to include my Instagram link. Should anyone need help out of that hole, because like I said, hunting down resources can be daunting and just a Herculean task when you're in that hole. So let me fix this. I gotta fry it, guys. Maybe. Let's wake her up. Oh, she is stuck on there. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's cure this and I'll wrap it up. So I'm going to include my Instagram link because I'm a stranger and sometimes that's what you need. So if you're in that position or you feel like you know, you just can't for one more minute, my ask is that you message me and let me help. Let anybody help, you know. Let me help you find the resources that you need. Let me maybe just listen if that's what you need. Doesn't have to be make or break time. It doesn't have to be you need to get help time. Maybe you just need to talk, you know. I will never mind. I will never be too busy. I mean, I might be asleep, but I'll answer as soon as I wake up. So, yeah. I will never mind. And someone else's mental health will never be a burden to me because I've been there and I know. And I like to think I came out on the other side. But, you know, there's still work to be done. But just because you're not 100% doesn't mean that you can't be a lifeline to someone else. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is try to be that for somebody else if you can. And if you can't, reach out. Because even when it seems like there's literally nowhere else to go from here, you don't know what's next. None of us do. And you never know the difference you might make in someone else's life later. So let someone help you. And with that, thanks for watching.